What's up, guys? It is Joe talking about the Kansas State Wildcats, specifically the Week 4 win over UCF to start off Big 12 play. K-State ends up taking down UCF 44-31 in a tight contest where the score doesn't necessarily reflect how competitive the game actually was, with K-State running away down the stretch, but I've got a lot of takeaways from this game we want to talk about. And before I do get into some thoughts here, let me tell you this real quick before I get into things. If you're interested, I'm going to be giving away a lavender quarter zip once we hit 2,000 subs. Go ahead and consider hitting the sub button if you're interested in getting your hands on a lavender quarter zip. I gave one out once we hit 1,000, and I'd love to do that again, so be sure and help us get there. Let me get it out of the way right now, do my laundry list real quick about UCF before I jump into K-State, just so I can get that out of the way and not send any ricochet shots over to our friends at UCF, our fellow Big 12 school, in their first game. First things first, they're a solid team. Obviously, it's a little disappointing not getting them at full health, with John Reese Plumlee being on the field, but you still had a great quarterback in Timmy McClain who played solid. I know there's a couple of takeaways where fans are going to be scratching their heads, to say the least, or at least questioning some of the decision-making. Yeah, that's definitely a fair assessment, but that's a loaded team. They're a powerful team. I have no concern about them in the Big 12. And let me rephrase that. I have no concern with them going forward. They're not going to be a team where you watch for them to get out-physicaled or, not stack up physically to other teams, I guess is the better way to say that. They're a talented enough team to beat anybody in the Big 12 right now. That's how this team works. Especially if you get Plumlee back, they're going to be a serious team. Maybe for the next decade. Those guys are going to be bringing it. Gus Malzahn's a good coach. I think there's a lot of great things for UCF to take away in that game. Specifically, one thing in my mind, I would never want to see the running back ever again. That Richardson kid is an absolute dog, and I think they played a good game. Obviously, K-State came away with a win. Not necessarily it's not self-inflicted. There's a lot of penalties on both sides, but I do want to just say we are stoked to have you guys in the Big 12. If you're a UCF fan trickling through watching this, I appreciate you. Great game. You guys got another big game next week against Cincinnati, I believe. You should get back on track and get back on the horse for your first Big 12 win. We'll see what happens. But it was a good game, and we were excited to host you in Manhattan. Every UCF fan I interacted with was positive, was sweet, was nice. So if that's one of you guys, I appreciate it. But let me kick things over to K-State. I say all that stuff about UCF to say I don't want to send any shots at other teams. I want these videos to be geared towards K-State. I don't want it to be like, if we lose, I don't want to be like, UCF did this and they were bad. I don't want to do any of that stuff. You know what I mean? It's not that simple. This is specifically looking at what K-State did on the field, in the game, and what's going to change going forward. First things first, Will Howard starts the game. We never saw Avery Johnson this game. That is a whole night and day difference than what we thought all week long. Hardly saw Avery Johnson at all. I think the camera was on him for a second on the sideline where they were kind of like, will we see the freshman kid at some point? Will started and stayed in the whole game. And I don't even think that, last video I talked a lot about Will Howard versus Avery Johnson. I talked a lot about that with Missouri. This week I don't feel like talking about that. I don't feel like we need to. Yeah, Will had a pick. That's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I know people are going to be upset about it because that's just how people react to quarterback stuff. I don't know. He's going to get that figured out at some point. But I think the biggest thing to take away from this game, DJ Giddens is an absolute dog. And that's not just I don't want to just say that to say that he's a good player, move on, cool, great. He is so good at football. And it is incredible that you land a kid like that. Based off his entire circumstance of getting to Kansas State, an unranked player, 0 stars as a recruit, kid from Junction City High School, comes to Manhattan, plays behind one of the most prolific running backs in Kansas State football history behind Deuce Vaughn last year, gets his starting spot this year alongside a 4-star transfer running back in Trayshawn Ward. DJ goes out there and balls, does something that Deuce Vaughn never did in his entire career. This is not supposed to be a shot at Deuce. This is just saying that what we saw from DJ was unprecedented tonight, at least in the last decade of football. DJ ran for 200 yards. That hasn't been done since 2018 with Alex Barnes. And Barnes was a beast. That's a monster of a man. Deuce never once clipped the 4-touchdown mark. DJ got to 4 today. Could have been 5 very easily with another goal line look without Will pulling it and sneaking it in. Obviously not complaining about that by any means. But DJ was a man among boys. 200 yards on the ground, nearly 100 through the air. That's an unbelievable performance. It's a Big 12 Player of the Week performance. The other thing, and I want to talk about a couple of different things with DJ. There's not just one thing you can take away from that. The offensive line was destroying the defensive line for UCF. Consistent. Obviously, there's a ton of good guys on UCF's defensive line. Chris Klieman talked about it in postgame. It got to the point where because there wasn't much of a threat for Will Howard to take off, the D-line could kind of just keep their hands active and then tip balls at the line of scrimmage. There wasn't so much of an urgency to get to Howard because he wasn't really on the move. He's confined to the pocket either way. What you saw down the stretch was Will start to get involved in the rushing game, even with his bum ankle. You saw him get into the passing game. You saw him do a bunch in the ground, a bunch of commanding the offense. That was a great all-around performance. K-State had 6 rushing touchdowns in this game. 4 from DJ Giddens, 2 from Will Howard. That is a great day. Now, I know there's issues and other things to take away, but let me tell you this about DJ. That performance that we saw pays dividends for the future. Think about this. That's a kid that has 0 stars, that chose to go to K-State. I doubt he had a ton of offers at the Division I level. I mean, I'm sure he did to an extent, but not, maybe the most desirable as an unranked recruit. Kid from Kansas goes to Kansas State, 20 minutes from your hometown, and you go out there and compete and put the world on notice. I mean, this is an NFL caliber performance where you see this kid and you go, oh my God, somebody's got to pick this kid up. Somebody's got to get this kid in the future. DJ Giddens he had hype in the K-State community, but not in the Big 12 community where it's like, this is a first-team All-Big 12 running back. That conversation wasn't really being had by members of the media. DJ said, you know what? Watch me tonight. And he's a quiet guy, so he probably didn't say that by any means. I did see in the postgame that he compared his performance. I don't know the exact ins and outs of this, so you have to quote me on this, but DJ Giddens compared his performance tonight with 207 rushing yards, whatever the case was, and 4 scores to catching a 20-pound catfish. Don't know what that entails, but DJ, that's the level of challengingness that DJ had in tonight's game. Reeling in a 20-pound catfish. That's what DJ did tonight on the football field. Giddens goes out there and puts the world on notice as a non-ranked recruit. I mean, that's crazy. You think about every kid that's a 3-star, 4-star, even 5-star guys. If you're an unranked kid all the way through a 5-star, you're going to look at Chris Klieman and say, this is the guy I want developing me. This is the guy that I want to turn me into an NFL athlete. I mean, you think about it. Felix, 2 or 3-star recruit. I forget off the top of my head. I think he was a 3-star kid coming out of high school. Didn't get a ton of offers, was considering going to Missouri as just a regular student and not playing football. Klieman offers him scholarship. He turns him into a first-round NFL draft pick by the Kansas City Chiefs in his hometown. Deuce Vaughn, similar situation. Very low-ranked recruit coming out of high school, still had some praise, but not a ton. Turns Deuce into one of the best running backs in the country, 2-time All-American, a guy who has the longest rushing touchdown ever against the Nick Saban defense. Turns him into an NFL draft pick in his hometown. This track record is incredible for guys going forward. And I'll tell you this, and this maybe I'm reading into this too much because we've seen a couple of different things. You saw Mike Boganowski. He was on a visit to Kansas today. Michael Boganowski, number 1 player in the state of Kansas, linebacker for Junction City, absolute stud. I mean, guy had 20 tackles and 2 receiving touchdowns like a week ago. The guy is a beast. Picking between K-State, KU, and Oklahoma, I believe. Could be wrong in the Oklahoma, but he's got a couple of options. He went to K-State in the past. He's toured us. He's visited us. Cool. Parents are very K-State people. There's a lot of things tying him to K-State, but he's also just feeling it out as a player. When you see a dude from your high school, DJ Giddens, go out there and dominate, put yourself on the scene at a national level, and that's your hometown, that's a kid like Boganowski's a 4-star recruit. He can go anywhere if he wanted to. He's a good enough player. He's got offers from everyone in the nation practically. It's not the same degree to that, but you start with already a higher ceiling than someone, not to take a shot at DJ here, but in theory, you're starting at a higher ceiling as a 4-star prospect. Chris Klieman can develop you into an NFL player. I mean, that's the truth. And it's not to say the guy like Lance Leipold couldn't or Brent Venables couldn't, but this performance by DJ Giddens goes a long way on the recruiting fronts because it puts every recruit on notice and says, you know what? I want to go to the league. This is the guy for me. I'm in the Midwest. This is the guy for me. That's where I want to be. I want to win a championship in college. I want to go potentially to the playoff, obviously with some time ahead. I want to be one of the best teams in the Big 12. I want to go to the NFL. I want to have a successful decade-long career in the NFL. Klieman can do all of those things. There's not a lot of coaches that can without spending, your entire time hoping to get to one of the 4-star, 5-star churning out programs. Like Klieman can take a kid that's a 2-star, 3-star prospect and get him to the NFL in the first round. That's ridiculous. DJ Giddens' performance tonight was huge for a guy like Michael Boganowski. Even though he's a 4-star, I know he's higher up on the food chain in terms of high school recruiting. That's a great sign. See a kid from your hometown go out there and ball out at a college that you're considering. That's a great sign. Don't want to say too much about it. I don't know a ton. He did have K-State gloves on in his last game. I believe last night, maybe Friday night. I apologize. Friday night. So 2 days ago at this case, if you're watching this video on Sunday. Let me move off the DJ Giddens stuff. We know he's a dog. He's unbelievable. DJ, unbelievable performance. This is incredible to see, and I'm pumped to see this continue. The offensive line. They caught so much crap from everybody and their brother. I was critical of the O-line, but I was also not, I wasn't calling for the drum to say, this is a bad offensive line. We are bad. I mentioned last week, not having Duffy in the room, that's their vocal guy. That's their guy that adds the nastiness to the O-line. They go from the, we're going to show up, we're going to try to do our jobs, to, we're here to destroy you. Everybody move back. Christian Duffy gets out there, you instantly see that. And I know that there's a ton of credit to the running backs, like DJ Giddens deserves a ton of praise. The O-line was moving dudes. And in case you didn't see, UCF has some massive dudes on that D-line. Multiple 300-pound guys on that D-line. Big, talented dudes. UCF had a stud defensive line. K-State's moving them back. And obviously there's certain things that are involved in that. It's good scheming, it's good play calling, it's good everything. But you see the offensive line start to get back in that. They kept Will upright, an injured quarterback who realistically should have been heavily pursued in blitzes. K-State not only kept him upright, but got him hit, I think, once in the game the entire time. Will Howard took 1 sack in the game. That's a huge change from Missouri. They were awesome tonight. And getting Christian Duffy back is huge for that. Also, Carver Willis played good. Carver Willis played good in this. But having Duffy out there, like you saw it on DJ's second touchdown run of the game, sealed the dude completely, sealed the right defensive end. DJ just sneaks behind Duffy, wide open spot in the end zone. Great read by DJ, but heck of a block by Christian Duffy. Getting that group back, everything looks better. The passing game's better. The offense as a whole is better. That being said, there's some issues with the team still. They're going to get it figured out. I'll tell you this. And I've kind of had to shift my perception a little bit of this team. I'll explain that here in a sec, but special teams was bad. No sugarcoating it. Chris Tennant continuing to struggle. Missed the PAT. Shanked a 26-yard kick. Last year you had Ty Zentner step in and play great. I don't know if this group has a guy like that. Chris Tennant's going to have to figure it out one way or another. That's a non-negotiable at this point. The kicking game has to improve. Absolutely. That's where that's at. Special teams. We were not special teams U this time. In case you saw my boy Stu on Twitter, he is now N-Stu, not special teams U. That's what we are at this point. This was a bad performance. First kick, you kick it out of bounds. You give up a massive return, and granted they have a stud kick returner. Don't let me move past that. Richardson is an awesome returner. He's a really fast, explosive player. K-State gives up a massive return to start the second half off. Bad start. Bad start right away. 65-yard return or something along those lines. It could be more, it could be less. Then you go out there and just you have multiple holding calls, blocking the back calls, multiple penalties, just taking your offense back further. Can't have that. Got to improve there. The secondary was not good. Guys, I'll tell you this. The secondary was not good. It's a team sport. The defense will figure it out with time. Give them a little bit of time. Because I know that the comment section is going to be reading about how just this guy's bad, it's a horrible unit, blah, blah, blah. We knew they'd have some issues. We knew they'd have some things to figure out. We're not at the point in the season now where it's a Big 12 title or bust right this second. I know we didn't look good. Secondary's given up a lot of jump balls, a lot of explosive plays down the field. I'm not too concerned about the flea flicker. That happens. Trick plays, sure. They just work out sometimes. Obviously, you want to see that broken up. You can't always guarantee something like that. We saw a little bit better communication. You saw guys working together. It wasn't a situation where we're just giving up massive plays because nobody's in the area. This time, there was at least people in the area. Obviously, there's a couple of PIs. There's a couple of bad plays where someone's just getting out-jumped or out-reached. Secondary didn't look great. They're going to improve with time. I promise you that. It's going to take some time. I don't know what the timeline is on that front. But having the bye week hit right now, this is the best time we could have gotten a bye week. At the start of the season, I thought we got absolutely fleeced by having an early bye week. I don't believe that for a second anymore. This is the ideal bye week. Get Will Howard 100% healthy. Get Christian Duffy 100% healthy. Get RJ Garcia, who exited in this game, 100% healthy. Jaden Jackson. Defensive side of the ball. There's multiple guys that are, lingering injuries at this point that aren't up to 100%. This bye week is a great time. Speaking of guys that aren't 100%, I don't know what the health situation is with Keegan Johnson right now. He's missed some time. He's played a certain amount of limited snaps. I fully expect to get him back. Oklahoma State. I want him out there. I want to see more of Keegan Johnson. He had a good kick return. Obviously stole it from Phillip Brooks. That's got to be better. Communication's got to be better than that, but had a solid return. And a couple of plays in the passing game. I want to see what's there with Keegan Johnson. I just don't know what's happening with his health yet. That's the question. So we'll see how that changes going forward. Something to monitor, I would say. And the final thing of the night, I want to mention this. Let me give credit, because there were some bad calls tonight, and I watched a lot of football all day yesterday, so there wasn't a ton of great takeaways in terms of commentary. The crew that did the game, yes, they had their issues. How about the late call? I forget the color commentator's name right now. How about the call of the guy saying Will Howard took a sensu bean and he's back to 100%? If you're not a Dragon Ball nerd like I am, dude, sensu beans completely heal you. It's a bean in the show. It's just a literal bean if you haven't seen the show, and I don't want to over nerd out and explain to you what this is. How about that call? Electric on the broadcast. Then telling the guys you should watch a couple episodes of Dragon Ball Z. And the other dude has no idea what the hell's going on. That was an electric call. All-timer right there. Put it in the Hall of Fame. That was great. Other than that, guys, I'm sure there's other things I could focus on. I'm sure there's other things I could talk about, but at this point in time, I'm pretty tired. I've watched a lot of football today. I'm just going to roll with what we talked about. DJ Giddens, dog. O-line is going to continue to improve. Bye week, perfect timing for the team. Get everybody healthy. Get everybody right. Good matchup with Oklahoma State. Don't necessarily have to immediately be perfect going into Texas or going into Oklahoma, so to speak. Oklahoma State still capable of winning. Every team in the Big 12 seems to be this season. It's a little bit interesting to see what happens with their quarterback situation. Who knows, to be honest. it's a good thing for us. We'll see what happens with Keegan. We'll see what happens with the rest of the team getting healthier going forward. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this game. It was a good change of pace and a massive get-right game. We're undefeated in conference play. We're on the same playing field as everybody else that got a win. So don't feel any less. Don't feel like because the Missouri loss we're XYZ. This team's going to get it figured out one way or another. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Once again, if you're interested in subscribing, if you like the videos, go ahead and hit the sub button. I'm giving away a lavender quarter zip at 2,000 subs. If you're interested in getting your hands on one, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you all listening. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about the Cats. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Go Cats.